When does a beekeeping year really begin? If you said spring, you're not alone, but you'd also be missing the key to success. The pros know the entire year is won or lost way back in the summer. So let's dive into the data driven approach that completely redefines the beekeeping calendar. Okay, let's really break this down. Most of us think about beekeeping as a straight line from spring to winter, but the professional approach, well, it's a cycle. And as you can see, the absolute pivot point for that entire cycle is August. Why? Simple. The work you do in August directly creates the strong, healthy bees that are going to deliver your spring harvest. And this brings us right to our first critical stage, the foundation. Everything that happens in August and September lays the groundwork for the entire year ahead. It all comes down to health and nutrition. Now, this slide shows you the single most important rule of this phase. If you want a healthy baby, you have to treat the mother. Think about it. Your winter bees need to survive for over 4 months. Who raises them? The August nurse bees. If those nurse bees are sick and loaded with mites, there's just no way they can raise a healthy winter generation. That's why treating in August isn't just a good idea. It's absolutely non-negotiable. So what are your options for treatment? Well, you've got two main tools in the toolbox. First up is Amitraz, which has been the commercial standard, though we are starting to see some signs of mite resistance. Your second option is Thymol. It's a fantastic alternative for treatment rotation, but, and this is a big but, it comes with a critical constraint. It's incredibly heat sensitive. If you're using it in temperatures over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, you have to cut the dose in half to protect your brood. Moving on to nutrition, this is so much more than just feeding sugar water. As this diagram shows so well, it's actually about chemistry. You see, the bees add enzymes to thin sucrose. Invertase stops it from fermenting, and glucose oxidants actually produces hydrogen peroxide, which acts as a natural antiseptic. What you get is a stable, antimicrobial food that keeps the hive healthy all winter long. And notice that warning, high fructose corn syrup just doesn't work the same way. Okay, with that solid foundation now set, we enter phase two, consolidation. From October all the way through December, the main goal is to secure the hive strength and get it ready for the deep cold. This next slide highlights something called the middle-aged problem. You see, a queen is already past her peak performance at just 1.5 years old. Scenario A shows what happens if you keep her. By spring, her output is pretty low. But now look at scenario B. By replacing her in the fall, your new queen hits her absolute prime maturity right when the spring honey flow begins. This is how you engineer maximum performance. All right, moving into late autumn, the rules get really simple and strict. First, by mid-October, you have to stop all feeding. Making winter bees process syrup in the cold puts a needless stress on them they just can't afford. Second, in November, it is time to take your loss. Go ahead and combine any weak colonies. And remember the math here. One strong hive in the spring is infinitely better than two dead ones. Then, in December, we hit a key tactical moment, the broodless window. With no sealed brood for mites to hide in, an oxalic acid vaporization, or OAV, treatment becomes incredibly effective. And you really need to take note of the dosage update here. New research shows that 2 grams per box is the new standard for a much more effective mite kill. That's double the old recommendation. So, having survived the winter, the colony is now ready to enter phase 3, expansion. From January to April, the focus completely shifts to managing that explosive growth and all the risks that come with it. This next graph reveals the single greatest danger of early spring. The red line represents the hive's food stores, and the yellow is the brood population. As soon as that first maple pollen arrives, the brood population just explodes. But watch what happens in March. The lines cross. Food stores plummet just as the population is peaking. This exact intersection point is why March is the #1 month for hive starvation. And all of that preparation, all that work, brings us to the final phase, the spring payoff. Everything you did way back in August was an investment, and this is where you finally get to collect the return. This graph perfectly captures the strategic goal of spring. Curve A shows you a typical unsplit hive. See how its population peaks really early? That leads to a high swarm risk before the main honey flow even starts. The goal is to get to curve B. By splitting the hive, you actually delay that population peak so it aligns perfectly with the main honey flow. That's how you maximize your honey production. And this diagram shows the final strategic move, equalizing your bee yard. That super powerful hive you built is now a resource generator. By moving frames of sealed brood, which is the safest asset to transfer, from your strong hive over to a weaker one, you achieve the perfect outcome. You've lowered the swarm risk in one hive and boosted the other, turning two unbalanced hives into two highly productive ones. So the key takeaway here is really clear. Beekeeping is a cycle, not a straight line. The success you see in the spring is born from the hard work you put in during the summer. Thanks for watching this Home Bee Explainer. If this data-driven approach was valuable to you, please go ahead and subscribe and help our community grow.